Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen really regrets selling her Bitcoin. Karen blames me for her decision to sell her Bitcoin. I bought my best friend's daughter a Bitcoin for her first birthday back in the day when they were $400 in 2015. I personally had been buying since 2012, so I knew about Bitcoin earlier on. Anyway, since 2015, crypto went up to like 60K at some point and then dropped back down. In 2023, I was worried her investment would drop even more. And since crypto is a risky investment, I suggested she sell because 25K is still a lot of money that she could use for college one day, or just let it grow in a mutual fund. I don't know. At that time, I wasn't really selling any of my personal crypto. I told her exactly what I said above. It could go up to 100K or down to zero, but 25K was still lots of money. I didn't really pressure her to sell, and I told her I wasn't selling any of my own. Anyway, she told me that made her start thinking about it endlessly, and she sold it at 25K. This year, it went back up to 70K, and it's really taken a toll on our friendship. She told me her husband calls me the village idiot, and she's the village idiot's friend who could have been rich. They're about to go through a divorce, and she told me it's because I involved myself in their life, so we stopped talking. I was trying to do a good thing for my friend originally, and if you told me back in 2015 my $400 gift would turn into 25K one day, I would be happy. But because of this situation, I lost a friend, and I can see it from her viewpoint. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Can someone explain to me why 100K is considered being rich and 25K is considered being poor? None of these amounts would grant you the freedom to drop your job and buy an expensive house. Not the jerk. I get why she might be upset, but you never misled her. You were upfront that you weren't selling, and she's inexperienced with investing. You didn't pressure her, and she weighed the risks on her own. She can regret her decision, but that's pretty much it. Besides, if it turned into zero, she'd be grateful that she sold. That's just how these things work. You're the jerk for even being involved with crypto. I tried that myself a few years ago and lost a decent amount of money. It's literally just a bunch of scammers who created a way to take advantage of people. And the only reason you like it is because you're taking advantage of people who are losing their money. I can't wait until the government shuts all this stuff down, like they should have a long time ago. It's not responsible to allow it to keep going on like this. This is why we need to vote. We need better policymakers who actually care about the people versus corporate greed and crypto scammers like OP. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Lesson learned. From now on, only buy crypto for yourself. And don't sell at 25K. Diamond hands for the win. I discovered my boyfriend of 3 years is cheating. Tonight's the biggest night of his life. Help me. I won't go into all the details of our relationship. We were in love, and well, I still love him. But I found out, clearly he doesn't. I discovered proof that he's been cheating on me for a while in the form of videos. I don't know the girl, and from the looks of their conversation, she has no idea that I exist. Tonight's the biggest night of my boyfriend's life. He's receiving a state award at a big dinner with a few hundred people attending, from his mom and dad to councilmen and all of that. In fact, the only reason I discovered this transgression is because I've been putting together a little video for him to enjoy some of the key moments of his life. You know, typical sappy stuff. I'm burdened with a lot of power right now, and I don't know if I have it in me to do the right thing, or if I even know the right thing. I'm blinded with tears of rage and sadness and betrayal, but at the same time, I love him. I have loved him, and do I really want to do this? The relationship is over, no doubt about it. I'm not a woman who will take her man cheating on her, certainly not. That's not the issue. The issue is there are cutesy selfies of the two of them, a lot of them, only shared between the two of them. Do I sneak one in on the snap reel as a way of letting him know that I know? Or do I simply confront him after his big moment passes? I'm not going to pick up everything and just leave without cutting contact. That's not my style, and it wouldn't make me feel good, just very sad. Do I do the crappy thing for once in my life? To anyone looking at the snap reel, it would just look like a picture of him and a friend. But to him and to me, it would be a private message, an outing. Help me, Reddit. I don't know what to do this time. If there's really nothing that anyone would pick up on other than the two of you, then you slip that photo in the slideshow. Make eye contact with him when the photo appears on screen. Then when it's over, you stand up and walk out. It ain't the high road, but nobody needs to walk the high road all the time. Update. Well, it's been a month and a half since it all went down. So what did I do? I did the immature, vengeful thing, and I don't regret it. I took a few photos of the two of them. Tasteful photos that gave off no indication other than that she might be a friend. I slipped them into the snap reel and I spoke kindly of him at the podium. Then after my turn was finished, I walked out. I drove home feeling calm and in control. 20 minutes later, the text started. Where did I go? What did I know? Where did I find the pictures? Was there more in store for him? I texted him, I know you've been cheating on me, but there are no more photos. There weren't any, and of course I left it at that. He didn't come home that night or the next. The next day, he called me to ask if we could meet and talk at a public location. I agreed to meet him at Starbucks. I arrived early and waited for him. He showed up a few minutes late and took the seat across from me. He started right off with the excuses, how it just happened, and he regrets it fully. She doesn't mean anything to him, and that she looked like a girl that he had had a crush on back in high school, and he was powerless against his old self. I didn't interrupt him, I just let him have his time. When he was done and looking at me for a sign of what might be next, all I could say was, so where did you stay the past few nights? Her house? And what did you do? He wouldn't answer. There hadn't been any doubt in my mind, really. I knew I was leaving him. He talked over himself, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, saying he'd change. I told him that I didn't want him to have to change himself, that if who he was, naturally, was someone who cheated on his girlfriend, then that's not someone I wanted to be with. He said that he was thinking of proposing to me, and all I could say after that was, good thing I found out beforehand. Fast forward to a few weeks later, he's moved out and I'm doing well. We have cut off contact. People ask me about him all the time, and I just let them know. He left me for a girl who looked like a high school crush he had. So that's the end. We're broken up. We are never, ever getting back together. I don't feel any regret for how I handled it. Like one commenter said, there's no need to take the high road all the time. My fiance was tricked and lost our down payment and savings. My fiance was selling his old mountain bike online. Someone messaged my fiance with an offer, and this person said they would send my fiance the funds in advance and send their cousin to pick up the bike the next day. My fiance had promised me he would only accept pickup in person with cash in hand. For context, and so this post makes sense, in Canada, the main way and safest way to transfer funds is done through your bank. It's tied to your bank account. You can only transfer what you have in your bank account, and even then there's a daily limit. It's also tied to your identity since it's tied to your bank account. My fiance told the buyer he would accept the transfer. This is where the scam started. The buyer sent it, but he accidentally added an extra zero to the amount. My fiance told the buyer he would transfer it back since it was a mistake. He told my fiance he got locked out of his bank account due to the mistake with the previous transfer, so my fiance should transfer it to his, the buyer's, cousin's account. My fiance did that. I have no idea why my fiance sent back the whole amount instead of the extra minus the payment for the bike. Then the buyer asked my fiance to use a different app since he was still locked out of his bank account. He sent it to my fiance, but again he added an extra zero to the amount and also doubled it. Again, my fiance sent back the funds. The buyer then asked if my fiance would take a check. They arranged for my fiance to meet the buyer's cousin in person and they would exchange the bike for the check. When my fiance got the check, it was higher than the agreed upon amount, but the cousin told my fiance it was a bonus for all of his trouble. My fiance deposited the check and eventually used some of the funds, or attempted to. The funds from the first transfer was from a bank account that was stolen due to identity theft. That transfer was reversed. The funds from the transfer on the other app was from a stolen account as well, and the app reversed that transfer too. The check was fake and was clawed back by the bank. This is all on top of the 2 transfers that my fiance made to pay back the criminal. Our entire savings account is now gone. What we had saved for a down payment, we were in the middle of looking for a house and we had to pull an offer because everything's gone. I didn't find out about any of this until after the fact. I get alerts anytime there's a transaction on our savings account, but my fiance deleted them. I'm a lineman and I do shift work, so I was asleep, and my fiance went into my phone and deleted the text because he didn't want me to find out he broke his promise about only accepting cash for the bike. I'm so angry. I'm not an angry guy in general, but I'm furious about this. We've been dealing with the bank and the other app. No success. We took the messages between my fiance and the buyer and the doorbell cam footage to different levels of the police. However, it didn't change anything. Our money is gone. We were hoping the bank could reverse the first transfer my fiance made at least, but the transfer was made into a compromised account and the money was immediately moved. The bank also says my fiance voluntarily and willingly made the transfers. We've given the police report to the bank, but it's not likely to change anything. Also, because of the fake check, our savings account was closed. It had a zero balance. And so was my fiance's personal bank account. I use a different bank, so my personal bank account wasn't affected. The bank says my fiance has to take his banking somewhere else, and also that they will not provide mortgage services to us. Not that we'll be buying a house anytime soon, since our entire down payment is gone. I've warned my fiance that anyone who says they can recover the money is lying and he must ignore them. I will also ignore anyone who says they can do that. I'm devastated. I know it was just money, but I feel like I'm in a nightmare. I try to be calm and laid back, but that money was everything we had. We had to cancel with our wedding venue so we could get our deposit back, just so that we could afford our rent for July. I'm so angry with my fiance, not just about getting tricked, because he also lied to me. He broke his promise and he lied. More than the money, he broke my heart, and right now, I hate him. This is like a nightmare I can't wake up from. Thanks for listening. I would be rethinking my entire relationship if my partner did something this foolish. Surprised he didn't run to the store to buy Bitcoin gift cards to pay the nice Nigerian prince back. My fiance has been getting very close with a new female coworker. I'm 32 female, my fiance 36 male, and I recently had a discussion about me feeling a little insecure in our relationship. He's a very kind and charismatic man, and we've been together for 4 years, engaged and living together for 1 year. We've never had any major issues like this before because we've always been transparent with one another. 2 months ago, a new girl, who's 24, began working at his office. She's very young and based on our limited interactions, seems generally good-hearted, but I kept having a growing feeling that something was off. He'd been coming home every day raving about her and how nice it is to have someone in the office who understands and laughs at his jokes. It seemed like an innocent work friendship, but he started to give me other details from their conversations that had me concerned. For instance, she would announce to him when she was ovulating or starting her period as an excuse for being grumpy or overly touchy. She began describing in detail all of the hookups that she's had since moving to our city, and he was relaying some of these stories back to me as if they were exciting work stories. 2 weeks ago, I met her for the first time at a company dinner. I told her it was nice to finally meet her after hearing so much about her. She smiled, ignored me, and began talking to my fiance about how different I was from her expectations. The next week, she had apparently been talking a lot at work about how pretty she thought I was and how lucky my partner and I are to have found one another. It felt strange that she had a lot to say about me, but didn't even speak to me when we had a chance to interact. I chalked it up to her being nervous or shy. Last week, my fiance came home with a very detailed story that she had told him about a failed hookup, seeking advice. I felt very uncomfortable with this, and I let him know that, while it's likely just my insecurity, I don't trust this sort of behavior. He told me to give it time, and once I get to know her, I'll see it's completely innocent. She asked him to meet up with her over the weekend, and he went so far as to arrange a meeting, without telling me until the day before. We had originally made dinner plans with my parents, and he told me that he would come later on because he needed to meet with her to discuss her relationship problems. I very passionately told him that this is not okay, and he canceled his plans with her, adding that it was cute that I was getting so jealous of her. We had a short chat about it later, and he said he would establish some distance. This Monday, after work, she called his personal phone. She said he had not sent her any jokes at work that day, and she wanted to know why. I told him he needed to set boundaries immediately. It's fine to be friendly with people in the office, but it really felt excessive that she was calling because he was enacting some kind of boundaries. I was upset that he had given her access to private communication line as well. He said he would just tell her he was busy with work and the thought to send jokes didn't cross his mind, and I thought that would be the end of the conversation. Today he came home from work sulking and refused to talk to me. Eventually, he told me that he explained to her that I was feeling insecure about how close their friendship had become, and she said that she didn't want to make me uncomfortable, so she said she wouldn't speak to him at all anymore. He was crying and told me He was crying and told me that she's just like a younger sister. He's an only child, and he was happy that she trusted him, but he was forced to end the relationship because of me. I apologized and told him that I had expected him to keep my feelings private and adjust his behavior rather than telling her everything. He said that would be dishonest, and he didn't want to distance himself from her without making her aware of the situation. I asked him why it was so important for him to discuss very personal topics with her, as he's only known her for 2 months. He angrily expressed to me that I'm trying to police his joy and said that I'm just upset that he's been too happy since meeting her. He said I should have never brought it up. I feel that him telling all of this to his coworker is a breach of my trust in him. He's convinced that I ruined their relationship by being jealous. I feel really bad because he was very happy at work and was happy about joking around and having lunch with her. But he said that because of me, they can't have any kind of relationship at all. Was my expression of feeling insecure the catalyst? Should I have kept this to myself? Update. We discussed the situation one-on-one, and he agreed that he was very much in the midst of an emotional affair, but claimed that it just felt good to have attention from someone at work. He said it might be a good idea to hear perspectives from some of his coworkers, so I reached out to 2 of them and I asked what they thought of the relationship. One coworker said it was obvious what was happening and they didn't want to get involved because they didn't want to be the one to break the news to me. Another coworker said that he witnessed some of their conversations, and this is just the way people in the office chat. My fiance clung to that last opinion and started making excuses again, so we had the emotional affair conversation all over again. He said this is too emotionally charged for him to make a decision right now. I told him that I don't lack the capacity, so he gets 24 hours to sort out his priorities and we have a heart-to-heart. Otherwise, he can go live with his work wife. Update 2. I sent him this post while he was at work. He read the comments and took them to heart. My fiance came home from work with flowers, crying heavily. I told him that this woman would try to speak with him behind my back, and she did. He realized everything I told him and what he read here was true. He apologized for not acknowledging my feelings. He said that I'm the greatest thing that happened to him and he doesn't want to lose me over this situation. He will be calling a therapist next week for him to begin private sessions. We will move to couples therapy from that point. We haven't set a date for the wedding, so we'll continue the engagement without rushing anything. Thank you to everyone for your advice. It really helped me a lot. He cried because he can't talk to her anymore? That's insane behavior. Do you still want to marry him? The longer I kept reading, the more my jaw dropped. But that part? I didn't know whether to laugh at him or cry for OP. How about the part where she's policing his joy? I wanted to throw my coffee at his head. OP, this girl is after your fiancé, and he's loving her attention. Her little response that she will never talk to him again was her way of getting him to go around your back. She's laying on the punishment that she knows he doesn't want. The punishment for him whining to her about you and making you out to be the bad guy. Yeah, the disrespect here is beyond astounding. No girl goes into those kinds of details with some random new male coworker unless she's trying to hook up with him. It would make any reasonable girl uncomfortable to do so if she has zero interest in that person. She's giving him ideas of what they could be doing if he cheats on you, and he's crying because of this potential going away. Yeah, no way. Do not be naive. Am I the jerk for not caring that my son's feelings are hurt and not consoling him? I'm 34, male, married to my wife, 32, female, for just over 2 years. We've been together for 6 years and we have a great life together. My wife has a 13-year-old son from a previous relationship who lives with us, and I've been in his life since he was 8. I've had dreadlocks for the past 15 years, and naturally, my son wanted to emulate me by getting locks of his own, which he's had for 5 years. Although I strive to be a good father, my son is very spoiled. Whenever I try to instill some discipline, I face resistance from him, his mother, and his grandparents. As a result, I've resigned myself to giving him what he wants, figuring there's no point in trying to discipline him if no one else supports it. He's not a disrespectful kid, but he's not as respectful as he could be and is very spoiled. Recently, some kids at school have been bullying him about his hair, trying to convince him to cut it off. His grandfather had already told him not to let the kids bully him into cutting his hair. One day, while we were around some of his friends, he expressed a desire to cut his hair. I reminded him of his grandfather's words and told him that he couldn't cut it. In front of his friends, he called his grandmother, asked if he could cut his hair, and she said yes. He then looked at me and said, "I bet I cut my hair." I responded that we had spent too much money on his hair and he shouldn't let anyone bully him into cutting it. A week later, my wife asked me again if our son could cut his hair. Frustrated, I said it was his hair and he could do whatever he wanted, but reminded her that his grandfather had said no. Ultimately, he got his hair cut. As you can guess, he now regrets it and wants to reattach his locks. My wife told me about his frustration, but I feel no sympathy because I warned him that he wouldn't like it, yet he did it anyway. Here's why I think I might be the jerk. My wife expressed that I need to be more comforting to him and sensitive to his feelings because this is a hard lesson for him. I responded by saying that I told him it's just hair and it'll grow back, but But I'm not consoling him or having any pity or sympathy towards him because of the disrespect I received when he chose to call his grandmother in front of me and attempt to shame me in front of his friends. For this, I will not console a 13-year-old who had no respect for me. I don't care that his feelings are hurt because I warned him, and in the end, he got exactly what he wanted. It's not my fault he doesn't like it. I tried to warn him, and now he has to deal with the consequences. She's upset because I don't have more sympathy for him. Dude, why do his hair decisions feature so prominently in your family? Why do you get a say, and why does his grandfather get a say? So what I'm hearing is, kid looks up enough to his stepdad to want to emulate him and wear his hairstyle. Awesome, right? Kid wants his dreadlocks, yet he's getting bullied in high school, a stressful time, leading him to wonder whether he should just cut them off. So instead of talking through it with him and listening to what he's going through as a family, you remind him of all the money you've spent and that his grandfather forbids it? So what does a 13-year-old do? Of course he's going to challenge authority when that's what you're lording over him. Seriously, the time for empathy and understanding was when he came to you about the bullying, not in trying to challenge your 13-year-old stepson. You're the jerk. Dude, he should have been able to cut his hair in the first place without all these people telling him what to do. And while you certainly don't need to reattach his locks, you can be a little comforting. I've had haircuts I regret before. It's always a shock for a few days, but you get used to it and it grows back. I had this same thing happen with my daughter after a haircut the other day. And I will admit, after she had brought it up 25 times in an hour, I told her to stop obsessing. I'm not perfect, unfortunately. But first, I talked it through with her, like I just said. Info. Do you want to be this kid's father? Because while being a father means you have to teach hard lessons sometimes, you're also there to guide them through the tough lessons. You've kind of just abandoned him by showing him that you don't care. Also, you're taking your issues with your wife and her parents out on him. Not the jerk. Wow, the absolute weakness of all of you people who are calling OP the jerk. His kid chose to make a stupid decision and now he has to deal with the consequences. It's pathetic how all of you want OP to coddle him. The kid is 13. He's old enough to deal with growing his hair back. What do you want OP to say? It's okay, baby boy. It will grow back. You defied me in front of your friends by calling grandma and asking if you could cut it, but that's okay. Why should you show me any respect as a father? I'm not important to our family. It's all about you and your feelings, baby boy. Let me validate you and enable you to keep being a little jerk. It really makes me sad how lost you all are. Were you just not raised with any morals or values? Were you never taught that actions have consequences, and just because you cut your hair doesn't make you a victim that mommy and daddy should be babying? I'm convinced everyone calling OP the jerk is a childless 21-year-old. Kid is gonna be a jerk, and his mom and parents are to blame. He's 13, showing you who he thinks he really is, and his grandparents are enabling it by telling you to coddle him for his crappy attitude. This is why Gen Z is useless. Break this cycle with him before it's too late, because when this kid turns 16, you're gonna hate him so much. Source. I lived it by watching spoiled former friends doing the same thing. Get what they want, disrespect everyone around them, and get coddled for it. My boyfriend is obsessed with a lantern he found at a flea market, and it's getting weird. How do I approach this? So my boyfriend, who's 28, and I, 26 female, recently went to a flea market and he found this old style lantern that he absolutely fell in love with. He bought it on the spot and I thought it was a cute little vintage decoration for our apartment. But now, things have taken a strange turn. Ever since he got the lantern, he's become super attached to it. He keeps it by his bedside and even gets up in the middle of the night to walk around the apartment with it, pretending to be an old-timey watchman. He'll say things like, "All is well," or "The night is dark and full of terrors." He really gets into character. At first, I thought it was kind of funny and endearing, as he always had an eccentric style of humor. But now, it's starting to annoy me. He does this almost every night, and it's disrupting our sleep. I've tried talking to him about it, but he just tells me that he takes his watchman duties very seriously, and that it's important for our safety. The issue is, I genuinely can't tell if he's joking or not. Has anyone else experienced something like this? How do I get him to tone it down without hurting his feelings or making him feel like he can't enjoy his quirky interests? Thanks for any advice. Well, the simplest answer is usually the correct one. Clearly, your boyfriend has been possessed by the night watchman who initially drew him to buy the lantern. Not sure why you're worried. He literally says, "All is well." Karen gets caught on camera stealing my plant and ends up on the local news. So this lady walking by outside decided to literally stop and steal our plant by pulling it out of the ground. This wasn't the first time that this happened, but we finally caught it on camera. It had been growing indoors in a vase for 2 years, as we were afraid this would happen again. But it was getting root bound, so we had to move it to our driveway 2 weeks ago. Then comes this morning and this happens. This was in South Brazil. Update. Soon after this took place, our friendly neighbor who happened to be outside had seen this take place and came to us straight away to let us know. As she's elderly, there was no attempt to stop the suspect in her tracks. She mentioned that she knew this person, so my wife and mother-in-law grabbed the footage from the security camera and drove over to their house in search of our plant. Upon arrival at the address, they very politely spoke to the suspect and asked her to give the plant back, as we had video evidence and witnesses that could testify she was the one who took it. She tried brushing it off, saying it wasn't her, and supposedly even threatened us that she would press charges for falsely accusing her. After some back and forth with no success of getting it back, she said, "Fine, if this isn't you, we'll reach out to our local news to try and identify who the actual person is." While this was taking place, I filed a police report and I got in contact with our local news and I sent them the video. We didn't provide the address or name of the suspect, as all we wanted was to retrieve our plant without harming anyone. When the camera footage hit the news, people from the neighborhood and people that knew us were bombarding us with messages. People on Instagram were already reposting the video, and very soon after, we were contacted by this person's family. They were profoundly apologetic and said they would do everything to try to retrieve it for us, as this was in no way a representation of who they were. To be clear, their family was actually very humble people who did different types of general labor work, and they're very well known and respected by everyone in the area for their work and friendliness. They were completely shocked once they saw the news, and they knew straight away who this was. By late afternoon, they had brought the plant back. When they did, they also said this person was mentally ill and on medication. How much of this is true, I don't know. But what I know is they did their utmost best to amend and bring closure to this situation without aggravation and distress. They also offered financial compensation, which we declined. We only asked for the plant back, which they did bring with them. But to our surprise, unfortunately, it had already been mostly burnt, and what I can only suspect was an attempt to rid the evidence. It was placed in a black bag and then lit up, probably when it hit the news. The roots seemed to have survived as it was still moist. I'm no plant expert, so we did replant it after cutting off the burnt stems in hopes that it will regrow. So this is it, the whole story. I decided to post this due to the traction that it's gotten, as I would like there to be no third-party misinformation surrounding this ordeal. For those that requested, the plant is a bougainvillea, and while not an exotic and rather inexpensive species, was very dear to us as it had very sentimental value to my wife's family. No money could replace it, and we had only planted it outside as a keepsake to see it blossom into a beautiful tree, and also because it began getting root-bound in the pot that it was previously in. My teenage son messed up big time, and I'm afraid of what happens next. Plus, final update. My son is 17 and just started driving. He used my car, a Honda Civic, to go to and from school sometimes. I was at home this week when 3 police cars came to our driveway and officers were banging on our door. Turns out my son rear-ended a vehicle and drove away. To make it even worse, the driver was a cop in his personal truck. It took maybe 15 minutes from the incident to when they came knocking. The hit truck has no damage. It was just a tap at maybe 15 miles per hour into his towing hitch. Our Civic's license plate is bent and there is some bumper damage. The truck driver filed an insurance claim with our insurance. My son admitted fault. There's also video footage of everything. I'm beyond freaked out and I haven't slept since. I scolded my son, but there is only so much I can do now. He says he freaked out about hitting an expensive new truck and just drove off. I explained how wrong that was. What I'm more concerned about is that the driver pressed charges to teach this kid a lesson. The cops on scene said it's up to the other driver if he wants this charged, and he chose to. We were told my son will be formally charged on Monday by the prosecutor and probably arrested. Fleeing the scene of an accident is an arrestable offense here, and it carries jail time too. I'm so scared. I'm a single mom. I can't afford to pay lawyers to keep my son out of prison when we can barely afford rent, food, and bills. I know my insurance rates will be done for years to come. His too, probably. What do we do here? Thanks. Update. I really appreciate everyone's input and words, some good and some bad. We've been a ball of stress since last week. He was officially charged with leaving the scene of an accident and fined for failure to maintain speed. I spoke to a few lawyers around town, and they all agreed there is zero chance the DA will drop the charge. Our county is very tough on crime, and they are campaigning on it. The DA refused any agreement, plea deal. They also have lots of video evidence from the truck's front and back dash cameras, a gas station, and an intersection camera. Our focus is to try and get probation instead of jail time. I need to come up with a few hundred for the fine and $1,500 for the lawyer. That's in addition to the insurance rates that will definitely go up. As a kicker, my insurance has small accident forgiveness for damage lower than $500. The insurance estimate for the truck's damage hitch came to $504. They also want to suspend my son's license so he won't be able to go to or from any job that isn't close by. We live in a really spread out area where a car is basically mandatory. I'm just so upset with him and his decision making. Trying to keep it together and work our way out of this, but it's frustrating. After watching the video, I got even more mad. He clearly realized he hit the truck, then drove around it, and off he went. Ugh. Final update. The crime he's been charged with is a Class B misdemeanor. The maximum penalty is 6 months in jail and up to a $2,000 fine. The prosecutor has asked for the max on both. We worked with an attorney who told us from the get-go that this case won't be dropped and best we can hope for is a lower punishment. I spent countless hours dealing with this. Our attorney was able to negotiate 5 months in county jail and a $1,500 fine. That's all the prosecution would budge on. The alternative was the full 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine. Attorney advised that we should take it because a judge would throw the max penalty in this county, especially since there's clear footage and really nothing to dispute or excuse the crime. Other lawyers had the same opinion. My son is freaking out and he's scared about jail time and now having a criminal record. He's been crying and is just a mess. That's besides the finance aspect. So anyway, financially, this has put us in a deeper hole than we were before. Now my son won't be able to work during the summer because he'll be in jail. He's missing the college start because of it too. We need to come up with $1,500 fine plus $1,000 lawyer fees and $350 miscellaneous court fees. I don't have any available credit lines, so I'll have to start borrowing or working an extra job. The biggest unknown is insurance. They might drop us after this. If not, I need to also factor in the premium increase at the next renewal, which will probably be a lot. It's definitely a big lesson for him, and me too, I guess, since I never thought to explain he shouldn't drive off after hitting something or someone. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.